It's outside. It's literally they can't even get in the door to the airport without waiting, I don't know, an hour. Guys, up first, we're going to talk about a subject that's a little bit near and dear to my heart right now because I just got back from a roughly 11-day trip to Brazil and Argentina, which was wonderful, but I am glad to be back and back at it. I always miss, the first couple days when I'm not making content. It's like a relief, but then I get itching and I see stories happening that I'm like, oh, I have so much to say about that. And yes, I am back and I will be at my normal schedule and back at work starting today. Anyway, though, luckily, because I was flying from Argentina to America, I did not encounter any issues that some people are encountering across the country right now at different airports on the American side, on the US side, because the government is in a partial government shutdown. Just specifically, funding has lapsed amid a standoff between Republicans and Democrats for the Department of Homeland Security, which contains TSA, which does, of course, the airport security nationwide, whether it should. Now, that's a question for another day. But anyway, it is the funding has finally run out and they're at a standoff. So people are missing paychecks, they're not getting paid, and they've started to not show up to work, which combined with some weather stuff and other things that are happening, like spring break, has led to an absolute catastrophe when it comes to security lines and delays and missed flights in certain places. And the videos of this are all over my social media feeds. It's not bad everywhere yet, but it could get worse. And unfortunately, the situation really seems to be at a bit of a standoff. First, I'm going to show you one video of a line that I saw. This was actually posted by Austin Bergstrom Airport, International Airport in Texas. Good morning, travelers. Here's a 4:30 a.m. view of the general security line for checkpoint 1. We're expecting a record-breaking volume of people. There are about 38,000 of you flying out today. Please arrive at least 2.5 hours prior to your flight's departure for domestic. And honestly, I'm not even sure that 2.5 hours would be enough when you see this line. I'm going to show it to you now. It's outside. It's literally they can't even get in the door to the airport without waiting, I don't know, an hour. Jeez. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Nope. Nowhere's that important. I'll send my regards to your wedding I'm missing. Oh, mom's in the hospital. Get well soon card. Obviously, I kid, but like the level of necessity behind any travel that could ever force me to wait in a line like that, that's my personal Vietnam right there. I'm going home. If I walk into an airport, I don't even get to walk in because the line starts like a mile, half a mile outside the door. I'm going home. Wherever I'm going can't be that important. Sorry, rain check for another day. I mean, gosh, that is just absolutely unwieldy and unimaginable. And I couldn't deal with that. I wouldn't deal with that. But of course, that's what happens when TSA workers are not getting paid and they've now missed their first full paycheck. They're going to call out of shifts. Some of them will quit and have quit. And I don't really blame them. I mean, you would like to think they could keep going to work for a few weeks till this gets solved, but as we'll get to, it doesn't really look like it's gonna get solved. They're kind of at a standoff, and you can't just expect these people to go to work all day and not have any money and not get paid. Who's gonna pay for their childcare? Who's gonna pay for they're gonna have to do something else that will actually pay their bills. So, I'm not blaming the TSA officers, to be clear. I'm blaming the idiots in DC who are, frankly, both parties are kinda gaslighting us about what's actually happening here, and I'm gonna explain it to you. Here's from the New York Times, though. Security lines snake out of more terminals as TSA goes unpaid. There's going to be a breaking point sooner or later, one union official warned, with travelers at some airports being told to arrive 3 hours ahead of time. Travelers at a growing number of U.S. airports are encountering shuttered security checkpoints and waiting hours in lines that extend well outside the terminals as the partial government shutdown enters its fifth week. About 50,000 TSA officers have been working without pay since February 14 as Congress remains at an impasse over funding for the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees the TSA, because of a disagreement on immigration enforcement. That's, to me, not a super accurate summary of the dispute. We'll get into it. Let's watch a clip of a TSA official from the Trump administration explaining that if this continues, they may have to close some airports. Watch this.
Then we have summer, we have the World Cup. Are you going to call in people that have been retired, or what? How are we going to remedy this problem if we don't get the government funded?
Yeah, we're doing absolutely everything we can. We have a national deployment office force, and we've fully depleted that. So at this point, we're fully stretched. And so, frankly, there's not much else we can do. As the weeks continue, if this continues, it's not hyperbole to suggest that we may have to quite literally shut down airports, particularly smaller ones, if call-out rates go up and we can't, a lot of these officers can't afford to come in. I talked to one officer this week. She's a single mother, and she has a special needs child, and she can't afford to pay for her special needs child's childcare. So again, I believe it's frankly unconscionable that we have Senate Democrats that are playing, they're holding our folks' financial livelihood hostage over political games, political partisanship. So we really need to get back to normal order.
Yeah, I mean, of course, this is a Trump official with a kind of Republican take on it, but I do feel very bad for the TSA agents that he mentioned there, who, like I said, it must suck, and they're put in this really unfair position. And I do maybe have a solution, which we'll come to. But yeah, this idea that like Democrats are playing games with their livelihoods for partisan purposes because Republicans have never used a government shutdown to do that ever, right? Republicans would never leverage a government shutdown to demand policy concession. Oh wait, I was born on a day, but it wasn't yesterday. So I've been around this. We've been around this block before, and this is not a new development. The Democrats just suddenly discovered. And then that doesn't mean it's right or that they're being totally honest about it either. We're going to get in now to the dispute over who is to blame for this. Who is to blame for the fact that the Department of Homeland Security is partially defunded, they're at an impasse, and TSA agents aren't getting paid, leading to all of these massive lines that you see and this total dysfunction that could result, as you heard a moment ago, in the closure of some airports soon. Who is to blame? Well, if you ask Republicans, the Democrats are to blame. And if you ask Democrats, the Republicans are to blame. Shocked, right? But I'm going to explain the truth after I kind of tell you and explain what both sides are saying here. First, here's Speaker of the House Mike Johnson explaining that the Republicans have put forward legislation to fund the Department of Homeland Security. If Democrats passed that legislation and gave them the votes they need, TSA would open tomorrow, which is true, but is only part of the story. Let's listen to him.
American airports obviously are reaching a breaking point, so severe that airlines are pleading with Democrats to please fund the Department of Homeland Security. It's fallen on deaf ears. 4 separate times, Republicans have voted to fully fund DHS since this chaos ensued. 4 times. And on each of those times, Democrats voted almost unanimously to block the funding. Now, instead of doing what's right and putting an end to this charade, Democrats insist on tearing the bill apart piece by piece.
So there's a lot to unpack there, and we'll see how accurate we find that to be. But essentially what he's saying is that Republicans have tried to fund the Department of Homeland Security, and Democrats have said, we won't pass it. And they're demanding a list of changes to DHS policy related to ICE. This, of course, comes in the context of the tragic killings of Renee Good and Alex Pretty, and the whole dispute over whether ICE officers should be able to wear masks, should have to wear body cam, all this stuff that they're disputing, which of course, that's a whole nother conversation, whether you agree with these different demands. But Democrats are holding out using their leverage that Republicans require their votes to authorize the budget for those reforms. Republicans are refusing those reforms, and so they're at this impasse. Now, the Democrats, for their part, have offered an alternative that they say means they're not to blame for the TSA closures and shutdowns, but instead that the Republicans are. They've introduced standalone bills that would just fund TSA and would fix this specific problem without addressing the impasse. Republicans keep rejecting those, keep blocking those, because then they would have no leverage, and they could just keep ICE defunded forever, right? They could just keep DHS partially defunded forever, the Democrats could. So here's Chuck Schumer's tweet, the Senate minority leader and leader of the Democrats. Democrats are ready to fund TSA. Republicans are blocking it. Democrats are ready to fund CISA. Republicans are blocking it. Democrats are ready to fund FEMA and Coast Guard. Republicans are blocking it. Here's a video that the senator shared on his X feed of him going back and forth with a Republican senator about this subject. Listen to this.
There has been offers made repeatedly, the most recent of which was about 13 days ago, I think, from the White House, and the Democrats have yet to respond.
Reclaiming my time, I rest my case. What the leader is saying is he will only fund TSA if we will continue to fund for a short time, for a long time, ICE and Border Patrol, which he knows is gridlocked, which he knows we don't agree with. And so it's clear. He's made it clear. Just fund TSA. That's it. Can't win the argument, leader. It's simple.
So there you have it, kind of both sides of the coin. Now, if you ask me who bears ultimate responsibility for this chaos, I think we have to be honest that the reason DHS is partially defunded right now, the reason there is a partial government shutdown is because of the Democrats withholding their votes on spending deals they had already advanced and kind of signaled that they would be open to, trying to extract these concessions. I'm not scandalized by that as a concept because, of course, every party uses its leverage, whatever it has, even when it's the minority and only has a little bit, to try to extract concessions. That's kind of the point of them. So if they were just blindly funding ICE and not trying to hold up for reforms, then it'd be like, well, what are Democrats doing to stand up for Democratic voters or their values or the things they're demanding right now? However, at the end of the day, like, they're the reason the government is shut down. That's just true. That's just a fact to me. And the TSA issues are happening because of the shutdown. Now, that said, you could, and Democrats are right about this, you could solve the whole problem today if they just passed the standalone TSA funding bills. Everything would be fixed. And Republicans are blocking that. So if you wanted to, you could say, well, it's Republicans' fault then. Now, of course, I understand why the Republicans are blocking it, because if they went forward and fixed the immediate pain that the shutdown is causing, which is the most obvious form that's affecting people is TSA, then the Democrats could just chill and keep ICE partially defunded, keep DHS partially defunded forever. And obviously the Republicans don't want that. So they're unwilling to sacrifice that leverage. And I understand why they are, but then they do have some culpability for this. And more importantly than the truth of who's truly to blame, which we could squabble over, and then personally, I think it's one of those things that if you're a Republican, it's very easy to construct a narrative for how it's 100% the Democrats' fault. And if you're a Democrat, it's extremely easy to construct a narrative how it's the Republicans' 100% fault. But regardless of who's actually to blame, what typically happens in these government shutdowns is that whatever party is in control is blamed, but just in the minds of the public. So the Trump administration and Republicans, whether it's actually their fault or not, are generally speaking going to take the political blame and brunt of things that happen under their watch, because most Americans don't understand that in the Senate you need 60 votes and the Democrats are withholding their votes. They just think, oh, the Republicans are in charge and this is happening. That's the level of analysis that, no offense, is just true, most Americans engage at. And so they will blame the Trump administration for this, especially if it continues, especially if it gets worse. And I fear it's going to. Frankly, I think it could reach an unsustainable breaking point where if this continues for months, travel will be brought to a halt. Like, air travel will be extremely limited in the country. And that obviously will have massive economic and social ramifications. And so something will have to give. And I think, frankly, that the Republicans may end up caving because because like I said, more of the public blame is going to be on them. So they may, and frankly, what I would suggest they should do is try to meet the Democrats somewhere in the middle on some of these DHS reforms and get DHS funded. But there's one other option on the table that I think is interesting, at least maybe after this is over, to kind of take this off the table. So here's more reported from the New York Times. The chief executives of major airlines, including American, Delta, Southwest, and United, urged Congress in an open letter on Sunday to immediately fund DHS and pass legislation that would pay TSA officers and air traffic controllers during future shutdowns. And then they put in a parenthetical here that air traffic controllers are being paid during this partial shutdown because Congress has already funded their employer, the Department of Transportation. And here's a quote from the letter from the airline CEOs. Americans who live in your districts and home states are tired of long lines at airports, travel delays, and flight cancellations caused by shutdown after shutdown. The letter reads, once again, air travel is the political football amid another government shutdown. So I'm sympathetic to this. Like maybe we could just exempt this particular type of funding from this, what is it? A cat and pony show, a dog and pony show? I don't know, whatever the expression is that we go through every year. But on the flip side, this is Congress's job. And frankly, the idea that, well, like, oh, the really important things we just should exempt from having to be funded every year like this. Well, technically, isn't everything they're funding supposed to be really important? If it isn't, why are we funding it? Why are we taking people's hard-earned money and allocating it to this? So in the short term, this would be a solution, but the only long-term solution is to get a Congress that functions and that is not so broken and so gridlocked and so hyper partisan. And frankly, I have no idea how we even begin to fix that absolute disaster. But the incentives are all wrong in our media ecosystem, in our social media kind of algorithms and what's rewarded. And the practical bipartisan lawmakers who get stuff done or who are really good at legislating and compromise, they lose these days. That is not rewarded. Whereas the bomb throwing partisans who fundraise really well and go viral, but then actually, of course, can't meet in the middle and get things done. Yeah, that's the type of politician that's perfectly engineered to succeed in this current environment. And then when you have two parties led by people like that, increasingly, obviously, there's going to be gridlock and serious consequences. And that's what we're dealing with, if you ask me.